Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune. And today I'm going to be reviewing one of the most anticipated albums of 2017, Divide by Ed Sheeran.
I'm in love with your body. I'm in love with your body. I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you.
Okay, so not that I said the most anticipated in that intro, not my most anticipated. Because, despite the fact that I've praised Ed Sheeran extensively in a few of my videos at this point, I've never actually loved an entire album from him. I fall in love with moments, with individual songs on the albums, but for me his best album to date is Multiply, and even then I wouldn't give that more than a strong 7. Now with that said, I do understand why his fan base is so huge, and why everyone, including myself, has been so looking forward to his comeback. But with that said, his albums always seem to have problems, whether they be overproduction, sloppy moments in writing, or outright corniness. And Ed is definitely a talented artist, but he can rarely keep me invested for an entire project. Now with all that in mind, I was looking forward to this album. I loved both of the lead-off singles, and while it did take me a few listens, his promotional track How Would You Feel Paean has grown on me quite a bit. So how did Divide turn out? Well, honestly, this album is a bit of a mixed bag. Because compared to his previous projects, this album does improve on some things, but it also brings up a couple of new problems that I wasn't expecting. And so let's start things off with the production.
Singing to Tiny Dancer, and I miss the way you make me feel. It's real. We watch the sunset over the castle lonely.
Okay, so here's where you notice one major change, namely the budget. I mean, this album sounds expensive, and that's not a bad thing, as it results in some truly amazing songs. Take Perfect, which is one of the most lush and beautiful tracks I've heard so far this year. I mean it, fuck thinking out loud, this is the perfect wedding song. You get the same kind of sweeping production on Happier, although that song really did sound like a rip-off of Sam Smith's Stay With Me the more I listened to it. Or take Galway Girl, which, oh god, I'm not even sure what to think of. On the one hand, it's pandering hard to the Irishman in me, but on the other hand, it feels very calculated, and that Irish jig that they use as the instrumental feels a little processed and stereotypical. Or take New Man, where he does that thing where his ex has moved on to another man and yet he's still hitting on her, using the usual bullshit excuses like, I can tell you're lonely when you're with him. And while he does pull it off better than most, why did he have to add that skipping effect to his vocals near the end of that song? It did not help. Surprisingly, at first, the weirdest and messiest track on this album to me seemed to be the opener, Eraser, which nevertheless did build up to a really great chorus which was really infectious, despite the very easy Gym Class Heroes comparison. And while I know he wrote that song too, I'm sorry, the instrumental on What Do I Know was such a blatant rip-off of Love Yourself by Justin Bieber that it wasn't even funny. What, did they think no one would notice the song that sounds exactly like the biggest hit song of last year? Now to be fair, other than those minor gripes, the instrumentals are really great. The sweeping, windswept production of Castle on the Hill, the elegant rollicking of How Would You Feel Paean, the closing piano ballad Supermarket Flowers, the tropical islands beat on Shape of You, the guitars on Dive. Most of this album sounds fantastic, and the higher production value really does pay off well. And as usual, Ed Sheeran's performance is great too.
Chatted some more, one more drink at the bar, then put Van on the jukebox, got up to dance. You know she played her fiddle in an Irish band, but she fell in love with an Englishman. Kissed her on the neck and then I took her by the hands. And baby, I just wanna dance with my pretty little Galway girl.
You know, much as his fans like to pretend that Ed Sheeran's voice has always been perfect, I feel it would be really unfair if we didn't acknowledge just how much he's improved between records. On his last album, his falsetto was a little shaky, and his voice could occasionally crack, especially on songs like Thinking Out Loud, where he occasionally came across like he was trying too hard. But here, he sounds a lot more comfortable. On songs like Shape of You and Eraser, he shows us that fame has allowed him to become more mature so that he can better handle certain subjects. His performance on the closing track Supermarket Flowers is downright incredible in its restraint. The bridge on Castle on the Hill shows a mature side to his writing and voice that are so great to hear. And then you get his belting on Dive and Perfect, where again his performance on the latter blows everything about Thinking Out Loud out of the water. It's just so grandiose, and the harmonizations on that song added so much flavor to it. Heck, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the song itself, I really did like his performance on Happier. The only moment where I didn't like him on this album was on New Man, where his corniness clashed with his overall douchiness on that track, and it honestly just left a bad taste in my mouth. Wasn't a fan. And then you have the track where he feels most anonymous on Hearts Don't Break Around Here, which just goes in one ear and out the other. And I would say the same for How Would You Feel Paean if his performance on that track didn't feel so impassioned. And the production on that track is just too good to ignore, especially in the piano rollick and the build up to the chorus. It's just so beautiful. So now let's move on to the lyrics.
I took the supermarket flowers from the windowsill. I threw the day-old tea from the cup. Packed up the photo album Matthew had made. Memories of a life that's been loved.
Okay, so before we move on, I feel the need to address something. While I may have bashed Thinking Out Loud on multiple occasions during this video, I don't dislike the song. It's pleasant enough, despite some questionable lyrical choices. My biggest problem is that it's honestly just kind of boring, and while it may seem harsh, this is something that Ed Sheeran runs into a lot on all of his albums. And the frustrating thing is, that's why so many of his fans love him. The fact that he's not above making a cheesy, easy-to-swallow love song. And yet for me, it always feels like a waste of his talent when I hear what he could be capable of delivering on an entire album reserved to only a few of the songs. And I'm saying that as a complete sap who doesn't mind a good love song. And to Ed Sheeran's credit, this is probably his most dynamic album to date, where even most of the slower songs like How Would You Feel Paean and Perfect have much more interesting production this time round. Now even so, this album does suffer from bland song-itis a little. Specifically on Dive and Hearts Don't Break Around Here, which just did not affect me at all. For the most part though, the songs are lively and interesting. The two flawed and interesting characters who hook up on Shape of You, the fantastic descriptive lyrics behind Castle on the Hill, the message to follow your dreams while using his own journey as an example on Eraser, not to mention all the people he calls out on that song, the wonderful love song Perfect dedicated to his girlfriend who he's known since childhood, the multiple nifty references proving that he does actually know his Irish culture outside of the stereotypes on Galway Girl. Ed has always been a songwriter who will highlight odd details, and for the most part it really does work to his advantage, as it makes his music a lot more unique and memorable. It doesn't work quite as well on New Man though, where he seems to know way too much about this guy. Right down to his bleached asshole. Yeah, too much information, Ed. Honestly, the entire song feels way too bitter for Ed Sheeran, while simultaneously being written exactly like a typical Ed Sheeran song, making it a very uncomfortable experience that I did not like. Luckily though, Ed does go out on a high note, as the final track is a piano ballad dedicated to his grandmother, who unfortunately passed away right around the time when he finished recording the album. And boy, if she had ever felt even slightly jealous of the incredible song dedicated to his grandfather, A Fire Love, she needn't worry, because not only is this one of Ed's best performances on an album to date, but my god, he makes the simple act of just cleaning out her house after her death the most meaningful and poignant experience in the world, simply by listing off a set of minor details that would seem innocuous to anyone else, but that make all the difference in the world. And it truly is a powerful song, absolutely fantastic. So at the end of the day, where do I fall on this album? Well, honestly, I'm kind of torn. On the one hand, it has some of the best Ed Sheeran songs I've ever heard, and the production is overall better than it's ever been before. But on the other hand, it still does have some real problems, and it isn't as consistent as I'd like it to be. So in the end, I'm going to give it an extremely strong 7 out of 10, based on the strength of some of the best songs here. I'm really glad Ed Sheeran is back, and while I'm not going to call this album great, I'm still definitely recommending it to you, as individual songs on this album are just too good to pass up. And honestly, it's still a damn good album, definitely worth your time. So thank you guys for watching. If there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me so I can listen to them and possibly review them. You'll find a link to my Twitter in the description, feel free to follow me if you'd like. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.